Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to be looking into today is a stalked case. It is the case of Alice Ruggles, and it is one of those cases where, I don't know, it ends in tragedy. And I just want to spread awareness about these, and as do Alice's family. As you will find out, they have done a lot since what happened to their daughter. Just to spread awareness and to try and help people see the signs and things like that, because it's just so often these cases end in tragedy and it's heartbreaking. Alice was born on the 24th of December in 1991 to parents Sue and Clive, and she was born in England. They had 4 children together, and Alice was the third. They were brought up in a middle class home. She had kind of a rounded childhood. She did ballet, she did swimming, she did, all sorts of things. And when she was 11, she was introduced into fencing, and she really enjoyed that and would continue doing that. She was generally just a very loving, outgoing girl. She was very quick-witted and very funny, and would always love to cheer people up. And if people were down, she'd make a funny comment or something just to try and lighten the mood and to try and make them feel better. The family resided in Leicestershire. As I said, they lived in England. And they were a very close-knit family, and they just loved spending time with each other. Alice went to Leicester High School for girls, where by all accounts she did really well. She got really good grades, she was very popular, she had lots of friends. Just everything school-wise and family-wise was just going really brilliant for Alice, and she just fitted in everywhere, and she was very well-liked girl. After graduating school, she decided to stay where she was raised, in Newcastle. She absolutely loved the town, and so why move on? So that is where she decided to make her home. She went on to get a job at Sky Newcastle Hub, and like Alice did with everything that she did, she would do really well in it and end up with a promotion. She just generally made tons of friends wherever she went, and that was no different in her job. Now we skip forward to 2015, and she has gone on holiday to Sri Lanka with a friend. And this is where she met a man named Truman Dillon. Now, he was very commonly known as Harry by everyone around him and that knew him, and so that is how I'm going to refer to him. So how it all started, apparently, that she posted a picture on Facebook or something like that, and he saw it being a friend of a friend, and then, they got to chatting from that. I believe he said she was the most beautiful woman they'd ever seen or something along those lines, and it sparked a conversation between them. They started FaceTiming, they started chatting all the time, and then a relationship did form. Initially, between the pair, everything seemed to be really good. They seemed very happy. Harry seemed very charming. He was always really nice to her and took care of her. Now, at the time, Harry was actually serving with the army. He was up in Edinburgh, and they decided to first meet up in January, where they spent a week together in Newcastle. They then went ahead and spent another week together in Edinburgh before he went back to his tour of Afghanistan. That was his final tour of, I believe, a 2-month duty. When Harry came back in April, Alice's friends noticed that there was something different with her. There was something off with her. Alice had become very distracted. She was just becoming really withdrawn, and it was Harry's doing, essentially. He was trying to convince her that she didn't need friends and things like that, and so she would reach out to them less, spend a lot less time with them. And even her parents began to notice, she would tell them that she had no friends all of a sudden, and she was always such a popular and well-liked girl with tons of friends, and so they were like, what is going on? They were so confused by it. Not only that, she was also losing weight, and she ended up falling out with one of her friends that she shared a room with, and ended up moving out of that because of that. And so she moved into a ground floor in Gateshead. She ended up moving in there with one of her colleagues from work called Maxine. Everyone was noticing that she just wasn't being herself. Ever since Harry came back, she was withdrawn. She was not socializing like she always had done before, and something was off. Not long after this, Alice began to think that Harry wasn't as caring and as thoughtful as she initially thought that he was. And it was true, because not only was he trying to control her and trying to keep her away from her friends and have, Alice all to himself, he was also cheating on her. And she actually found out when another woman must have searched him up on Facebook or something like that. She realised that he was actually in a relationship with Alice, and so contacted Alice and told her that she had also been dating him and she didn't know about Alice. So she really thought that they were a solid couple, and having that just come into it and realize that he's been cheating on her obviously was such a betrayal, and she didn't want any part of it, and so she decided to end things with Harry. Harry would not accept that at all though. He began bombarding her over the next week with messages, text messages, voice messages, emails, anything that he literally could use to contact her, he did. He would tell her, like, he would be really nice on one instant, telling that he's really sorry and that he loves her, etc. And then in like the very next message, he would just be so nasty and mean, and it was just like Jekyll and Hyde, I guess. I believe he had 2 phones, and she ended up blocking his number on both phones, and then he ended up emailing her. She didn't really want to block his email because she didn't want him to begin messaging her on her work email. So, you know, he was just, no matter what, he was just getting around it, and he was just so relentless. When he couldn't contact Alice, he began getting around that by contacting her friends and literally her parents. He would message her mother, calling her mum, asking her to convince Alice to get back with him and that he loved her and all of this rubbish. And then the threatening messages came, you know, he began threatening to kill himself, he began threatening to kill her. He would ring her just to tell her how much he loved her, crying down the phone. And for months, it would be torture for Alice. And, you know, of course it would. You don't want somebody who you've broken up with because, you know, not only is he changing you in a way that is not very good at all, he is also cheating on you. Like, seriously? Harry then went ahead and hacked into her social media account, and he began reading all of her messages. Basically, so he knew exactly who she was talking to and, you know, everything she was doing. She had no privacy from him. Although, of course, at the time she didn't exactly know that he'd hacked it. But he was just trying to keep control of her, even though she was no longer in a relationship with him. It was from him hacking her Facebook that he found out she was in a new relationship with another guy. She had begun to see another man called Mike. He was an army officer, and Harry was furious. He is set out to completely destroy Alice and her new relationship with Mike. He decides he's going to contact Mike, and he tells him all these things about Alice that are untrue. And, you know, he begins sort of the character defamation of Alice to Mike to try and get them to break up. He also told Mike that she was cheating on him with another man, which again was not true, but it just brought across the point more that Harry was not for letting Alice go. On the 30th of September, Alice was at home and her doorbell kept ringing. Now, at this point, she's quite frightened of him, and she would say she'd leave work. She would always get a lift home and get accompanied home. They would drop her off right outside her door, and she would go inside and lock all the doors. You know, I mean, she was frightened of him. She was frightened of what he might do to her. And then this doorbell starts ringing in September, and she knows it's him. She honestly does know it's him. She looks outside, sees nothing. You know, she just has a gut feeling. It was as if he was trying to get to answer the door, but again, she wasn't gonna. She was frightened. Later on, Alice went to get into bed to settle down for the night, and then she hears this knock on a window. She looks out of the window because she's on a ground floor flat, so her bedroom's on the ground floor, obviously. So she looks out the window, and there's Harry stood with a box of chocolates and some flowers. When Harry saw her open the windows, he apparently backed off and then left. And obviously that frightened her. That's very, very creepy behaviour. Not that he wasn't creepy before, because he was, but now he's jumping over a fence and knocking on her actual bedroom window. It's very frightening behaviour. Then, not long after this, all this time bearing in mind, he's in Edinburgh and she's in Newcastle. So it's like, I can't remember exactly, maybe like a 2-hour journey. It is a long time for him to be driving down to knock on a window, leave some freaking chocolates and flowers there, and then go. Do you know what I mean? That just shows the extent of his obsession. Not long after this, he was there again. He's trying to ring her all over again, leave her voice messages. He kept telling Alice that he didn't want to kill her, which is very, very frightening and concerning to even remotely hear somebody say that. And so finally, enough was enough. Alice decided to listen to her friends, listen to the people around her, and finally contact the police. This is the actual phone call that she made to the police, the first phone call she made to the police.
Good evening, Northumbria Police. Chris speaking. How can I help you? Hi there. I just need a bit of advice, really, more than anything. So I split up with my boyfriend about 3 months ago. Since then, I know that he's hacked into my Facebook and also my phone. He's been sending me a lot of messages, even though I've asked him not to contact me. And basically, like, just messaging my friends and things, and then tonight he's, well, I had a knock at my door, and well, he'd sent me a message saying I've been in the garden since 5. I had a knock at my door, and then when I went and looked, I've got like a little, you know, the thing that you can look through, and there was no one there, and then it happened again, 2 or 3 times. And then he's come round the back, knocked on my bedroom window at the back of my flat, it's a ground floor flat. He's been outside and he's like left some flowers and chocolates on the like outside windowsill, and like he walked off. He's not done anything, but I'm concerned. I've been putting off, like my friends have been telling me to call the police. I've been putting it off, but I just feel a bit like shaken up tonight. So
well, it can be classed as harassment,
yeah,
which is a crime.
Yeah.
If you do any contact from him, there's a number of things you can do.
Yeah.
You could go to a solicitor and take out an injunction.
Yeah.
Keep them away from you.
Yeah.
Or report it directly to the police now, and we can issue them with a PIN notice, which means if he ever comes near you again or contacts again, he'll be arrested.
Okay.
So which would you prefer?
Can I try that option, please?
Yeah, of course you can. And your name, please?
Oh, sorry, it's Alice.
What's he called?
Well, his name's Harry Dillon, but he's got like a seat name, which is Trimon. He lives in Edinburgh,
he lives in Edinburgh.
Yeah. So he's like driven down.
So he's constantly contacting you by phone or text or?
Yeah, well, I've blocked his number. We've got 2 phones. I've blocked both numbers. So he's been sending me Gmail messages. I haven't blocked him off Gmail because I don't want him to start emailing my work email. Then he's also made a fake Snapchat account to try and contact me on.
We'll need to get the Edinburgh police to go and serve him with a PIN notice.
Okay.
But, well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to see if we can make an appointment to come and see you.
Yeah.
In the morning.
Yeah.
We'll get the details.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll sort it out. We'll get it sorted for you.
Brilliant, thank you.
Okay, Alice, thank you then.
Thanks, bye.
The police said they tried to help Alice. They said that they would issue this PIN notice, which is a police information notice, and that was supposed to try and stop any harassment, any contact, but it didn't stop Harry. Just days after the first call, or maybe like a week, I can't entirely remember that little detail, but Alice rings the police again because she had received a letter off Harry, and it had contained some old photos of them together when they were a couple. And this letter, basically, it wasn't really threatening, but he was complaining how she had contacted the police on him, how she had essentially ruined his life. He had had all these things confiscated, which is why he was sending a letter, you know, his laptop, his phone, etc. And so she wanted to let them know that he had broke this PIN notice that they had served him. This is the discussion she had with the officer, so the second phone call to the police, just a week after, I believe.
Sorry, good evening, Northumbria Police. Jeff speaking, how can I help?
Hi there. Yeah, I've been in touch with the police. Somebody's been issued with a PIN so that they can't contact me. However, I've had a letter off them.
So you're reporting like the breach of the PIN?
Yeah.
Who was it from?
Harry Dillon.
What was the content of the letter? Was he?
So pictures of me and him, because he's my ex-boyfriend, so like a notebook that I'd sent him when we were together and a letter.
Okay, and what was the nature of it? Was it like threatening or was it harassing? Or?
No, not threatening. It's just saying that he knows I called the police on him and he's had everything confiscated, and all he has to himself is a pen and paper and an iPod, and explaining why he came down last Friday. And then it says at the bottom he won't contact me, you know, this will be the last I hear from him, but he's said that a lot of times, and he never does seem to stop.
So do you want to call back to discuss this?
Yeah, what's usually what happens with it?
Okay, well, I'll let them know you want someone to contact you back, just discuss what can be done.
Okay. Will it be the police officer that's been dealing with my case?
I can't guarantee who it'll be. I'll let them know you've got your pin notice there, so it's going under a breach of it.
Okay.
Is there best time to phone you back?
Any time really will be fine.
Right. Okay, nice. I'll let them know you want someone to contact you.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, bye.
Thanks, bye.
Harry was saying that he was in a lot of trouble in his barracks and that they took away his phone and all that lot, but they actually hadn't, so that was another lie. At the end of it, he said that he had put in all the things that reminded him of her, and that he wouldn't contact her again, which would turn out to be another lie. The police didn't really do anything about this, even though he has broke his pin notice. He has literally, contacted her again after being told not to. They just seemingly didn't do anything about it. She honestly felt like when she contacted the police, like they were not helping her and they were just brushing her off. That is what she actually sent a message to a friend, I believe. So she was distraught because he was frightening, and she just thought that at least contacting the police, they would be able to help her, and them seemingly doing nothing. She felt like nobody could stop Harry from stalking her or harassing her. And I believe she even said on one occasion, like, she thought that the police would take notice when he finally stabbed her or something like that. So she's thinking along the lines that he is going to hurt her and that no one's going to do anything about it. 5 days after this, on the 12th of October, Alice goes to work like any other day. She is then dropped off by a work colleague right outside her door like they normally would do, and dashcam footage actually caught this happening. You can see the car driving in, you can see Alice getting out, and then she just goes straight into a house, and then this work colleague drives off. She ends up texting her friends, texting her boyfriend, and then all of a sudden the text messages stop. Also, something I neglected to mention, Harry apparently drove down the day before, all the way from Edinburgh, went to the house, took a picture of the window, and then drove all the way back. Then we get a phone call. It isn't long before Maxine actually gets home, her roommate, and when she goes to enter the house, she realizes that the door is locked and she actually cannot get in. So, one of the back windows is open. She manages to crawl through the window because that is the only option she has at this point. And once inside, she finds Alice in the bathroom covered in blood. She rings the police immediately, and this is the call that follows.
Please, I've just come back to my flat and the door was locked, so I crawled through the window and my flatmate's covered in blood in the bathroom.
Is she breathing?
I don't know. I can't look. I'm sorry.
Okay, try and stay calm.
Alice. Oh my God, she's dead.
And yet the door was open.
No, it wasn't open. It was locked, and I've crawled through my window that was open in the back door, and she's lying covered in blood. She's blue.
Can you have a look and see if she's breathing for the ambulance?
She's not.
She's not breathing.
No, she looks. No.
Where's the blood from?
It's everywhere. I don't know. Her leg looks broken. Everything.
Say that again, sorry.
Her leg looks broken. Everything. I don't know. Alice.
How much blood is there?
There's lots. It's everywhere. It looks like she was in the shower. Everything's been knocked over. It looks like she's been attacked. Please help.
Things have been tipped over in the bathroom.
Yes, and everything looks a mess. Like, she's not breathing. She's actually blue. Please. I knew this was coming. I'd X is an absolute psychopath.
Say that again, sorry.
She's put in a complaint in about her ex, and she phoned 101 at the weekend to report that he's trying to get in contact, and he says we're going to do nothing. Now this has happened.
Right, who tried to contact her at the weekend?
No, she's contacted 101 because she put in a statement about him 2 weeks ago. And
About who?
Our ex-boyfriend, Harry Dillon.
Right. So she been having problems with her ex?
Yes.
So do you think that's what it is?
Yeah. I can hear the police are coming.
Alice was pronounced deceased later that day. Maxine acted very quickly in calling the police, so they were around there straight away. They were at the scene, bagging the evidence and processing everything straight away. But they did have struggles in the beginning because there was not much CCTV around where she lived. So obviously that was like a hindrance in the beginning. But Maxine had already basically told them that she believed that her ex, Harry, may have done something like this to her. So pretty much immediately he was a suspect straight away. They did eventually find CCTV of Harry travelling down from Edinburgh to Newcastle that day. When the police did a search on her flat, they found that her phone was missing, and they requested to get her phone records and GPS data and things like that. They also came across the phone records that Alice had sought when she rang into the police to explain what Harry had been doing to her. And again, it just didn't take long before they arrested Harry at his barracks. He complied with the police. He was very cooperative. They took his clothes, they put his hands in bags to try and keep evidence that could have been on him, and they found that he had scratches on his face. They took swabs from Harry and they fast-tracked it all. They actually weren't solely looking into Harry, but he was the main suspect in the case very early on, and so especially with his scratches on his face and things like that, you know, they could have easily been defensive wounds. They seized his car. When they looked into that, they found a spot of blood in there, which was sent for testing. At this point, he's the only suspect in the case. They had ruled out all the other leads, and they're just interviewing him, waiting for the forensic testing to come back. He denies murdering Alice flat out. You know, he didn't do it. He said that he wasn't present when Alice was murdered. He had no knowledge of it at all. They obviously presented him with the evidence that he was on the street, and so he had to admit to that. He said that he did drive down to Newcastle to speak to Alice. He tried to get her attention through the window. She was on her phone doing something, and so he knocked on the window. Alice said, "What are you doing here?" And they had a brief conversation. He said that he never entered Alice's house at all, and then Alice came outside to talk to him, which doesn't really make any sense anyway, because according to those around her, she would have never ever done that. She was frightened of him. She literally locked herself in a house at night time, so why would she come out and speak to him? So that just rang alarm bell straight away. But anyway, apparently she was saying to him that, this is his story, by the way, you know, this is what he said happened. She said to him that she didn't want him to be one of those like boyfriends that kills his girlfriend, and he then tries to sort of grab her hands like affectionately to reassure her that he is not one of those people, and then frightened, she scratched his face, and then he left. They asked Harry about her phone, because obviously they couldn't find it, and Harry said that she had her phone when he left and she had it on her. It was in her right hand, and she even threatened to call the police on him. Obviously it didn't really make sense after they spoke to him what he was saying, and so they just really needed this forensic evidence to come back to kind of point towards him, because obviously they need evidence to prove that it was him that did it. He said that he never went inside the flat, and there was never any evidence inside of somebody trying to make any attempts to clean up, and so under that assumption you would think that they would have blood on their clothes or something. So that is what they were waiting for. They found the murder weapon. They also went ahead and found Alice's phone. Harriet was wearing like an army band. I can't remember what it said on it, but it was, I think it might have been a Help for Heroes one. You know those like thin like yellow bands, rubber bands that you wear on your arm? It was one of them. And they actually found blood in it, so obviously they had to try and do testing on that to see whose blood it actually was. At this point there wasn't enough evidence to charge Harry, but they really did believe that it was him, and so they filed for an extension to sort of keep him detained. The police really didn't feel comfortable in letting him go, because honestly they thought he'd done it, but they just needed proof of that. and so the extension was actually granted. Harry was sticking to his story though. He never went inside of her house. He left. Alice still had her phone with her, and you know, that was that. But this is when the actual police found some more CCTV footage. This is actually when they found the footage of Harry's car parked up the street. They found footage of him approaching the flat 15 minutes after she had actually gone home. And as I said, it is known that Alice was messaging her friends. 24 minutes after Alice's last message to her friends, Harry is seen leaving the area. And just 9 minutes after that, her roommate returns home and then calls the police. That's just how quick it all was. The timeline of it, like, it was so close. If she'd have come home any earlier, she might have actually seen the attack. The GPS information comes back from the phone, and they find that, well, very suspiciously, it actually follows the same route that Harry took home. So it goes from Newcastle to Edinburgh, which makes it look like the phone is in his car. And so that is a massive contradiction to what he said. He's saying that he left Alice with her phone, and now it looks like the phone was actually in his car all along. And so they interview him for a final time. They re-question him on the phone matter. He is adamant that he left her with her phone. They ask him if he is sure. He says that he is. And then they show him the evidence that, well, basically speaks otherwise to what he's saying. He then asks if he can speak to his lawyer. The interview is resumed 18 minutes later, and they carry on asking him about the phone, and he just replies no comment. Harry was charged on the 12th of October, and during his trial he tried to deny murder. He claimed that Alice was the one who actually attacked him, but of course the police had evidence to prove otherwise. The blood came back to say that it was Alice's on his bracelet. There was blood in his car that was also Alice's. And there was just so much evidence against him, like the phone pings, the CCTV. They had so much on him that nobody believed what Harry was saying. More importantly, neither did the jury, and Harry was found guilty of Alice Ruggles' murder and was sentenced to a minimum of 22 years in jail. And how he actually murdered Alice as well was really brutal. I believe that the photo that he took of the window was probably his way of trying to figure out how to get in. The day before, he goes down, he manages to jimmy open the window or something. He crawls through that window, and then once inside is when he begins his attack on Alice. He, I believe, slashed at her throat multiple times, and honestly, the attack on her was so brutal and so devastating. And then he just goes out of there and drives back home and then just lies about it all. It just breaks my heart. This case truly breaks my heart, because she tried to get help. She tried to get help from the police, as many other stalk victims do. And she ended up losing her life because nobody was willing to do anything about it. And honestly, it's so tragic. Her family lost such a precious soul, and so did the world, you know what I mean? They went on to set up the Alice Ruggles Trust, where they want to spread awareness of stalking and the signs of it, and just to try and help others where their daughter was failed, which is such an amazing thing to do. And they are still out there spreading awareness and just trying to make people aware of the signs of stalking earlier, so that maybe, just maybe, more people can be saved from it. So yeah, that is the end of the case. If you guys have enjoyed this video, give me a big thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel for similar content. Anyway guys, that's all I have today on the case of Alice Ruggles. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.